I don't think of pregnancies as high risk or low risk because I don't think there's one set of interventions or investigations that apply to women who are high risk and then don't apply to women who are low risk.
Hello everyone and welcome back to No Place Like Home. I'm your host Kath and I'm very lucky to be joined today by Dr. Jean Wong. Welcome Jean.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming along.
Thanks for having me.
We obviously had Perry in a couple of months ago now, so you've been roped in this time.
Yes. I'd like to say, I won't say, but drew the short straw. That's me.
Selectively had your hand raised.
Yes.
So I'm excited to be able to dig a little bit into some fun topics today with you. Mm-hmm. But I'd love to kick off with just getting to know a little bit about you, your background, family, and how you fell into this career path.
Yeah. So I am Malaysian. I was born in Kuala Lumpur. Mm-hmm. We came to Australia, I think, when I was about 8 years old. Mm-hmm. And apart from the 2.5 years that we worked in the UK, mm-hmm. I have lived in Melbourne ever since 8. I started uni initially with an intention to study anthropology. Wanted an arts degree.
Very different.
A little bit different. But I hear anthropologists can't work. They don't get jobs elsewhere. And anyway, so I've ended up in medicine. And I think once I started medicine and we do our rotations and we work through all the different specialties, when I started obstetrics, I think I realised this was the place for me.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you've worked in this field for a long time now?
For half my life now.
That's a mysterious time, but amazing.
Very long time. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So through your journey into that, so you've travelled, you've done all sorts of different things to sort of build you into obstetrics. Currently, and for the last 18 years, I think, 17 years, I work primarily in a private practice. Awesome. We're in North Melbourne and we look after our mums at Francis Perry. Mm-hmm. I also work at the Royal Women's Hospital. It's just downstairs from Francis Perry. Mm-hmm. And I think prior to that 17 or 18 years in private, I've only worked at public hospitals, and most of that was training. And then after I finished my 6 years, which I did at the Royal Women's, we went to Yorkshire. My husband is a doctor as well, so he had some training to do there. And I worked in public in Yorkshire for 2 years. And I had a 2-year-old with me at the time. I had a little child with me, but it was fun. It was an experience. And you don't get to do that all the time. You don't get to live overseas and, experience the other side of the world. That's amazing. Oh. And with just some little baggage with you that was probably enriching your experience.
It certainly made for a very different experience. I don't think I saw, and I say this to actually lots of my friends, I didn't see any part of Europe after sunset for about 3 years, I think. Every time we travelled, we'd had to be back in the hotel before bedtime.
So you didn't live the Euro way, which is letting the kids run in the streets and no.
No. In fact, I think we came back from the UK just before Madeleine McCann was
good
abducted.
Time.
Yes. But when we were there, it was very normal to just leave your child in the hotel room and go out for a drink afterwards. That was normal.
Crazy times. So obviously that's just another part of building your career and the richness that you bring to your practice now. We've spoken with Perry about what her view is on postpartum care and what that looks like. Today, we really want to go through with you basically the role of an obstetrician and what that looks like through each stage of pregnancy. Obviously, it's diverse, but what we know is so many people just don't understand what that covers. So
I'd love to know, starting from preconception, what does that look like?
So for us, when we do our training, we do our training in obstetrics and gynecology. So some of my mums actually I've already seen prior to conception, either from a gynecological perspective or as part of a pre-pregnancy planning perspective as well. So for a lot of mums to be who've not really thought about seeing an obstetrician, a lot of that can be done with a general practitioner. It's really things like thinking about, checking your immunizations are up to date, making sure your health is as good as it can be. Things like starting folic acid. We like that started a few months before you actually conceive. But a lot of women will come and see me in a pre-pregnancy planning sort of space. And it's quite useful, I think, for them. I actually think some of them might be auditioning me. That's not a bad thing. I think it's worth them.
There's auditions all around at the moment. So
auditioning. But for them, I think it's good to see if if I'm a good fit for them from a personality point of view. I think most obstetricians, we practice very similarly. We do the same things. But I think if you don't feel comfortable with your obstetrician, or if maybe you don't feel you're able to tell them about your discharge or your thrush or that sort of thing, your hemorrhoids, maybe that's not the right obstetrician for you. So I think when they're coming to see us, they're already getting a feel for that. But also the pre-pregnancy visit is a good time to talk about things that your general practitioner might talk about, but I will go into more detail about genetic testing, which can be done before pregnancy. In fact, maybe for some parents or some families, it's better done before pregnancy. Things like, when they first fall pregnant, when they need to come and see us, how early they need to come and see us. That's different for each mum, depending on what's happened in her past, if she's had a miscarriage before.
Would you, as far as pre-pregnancy or preconception in general screening, would you be doing that for everyone, or are you like somebody's come to see you, they're doing, like you're saying, this audition, are you doing screening for everyone, or do you need them to fit certain criteria, like they've got pre-existing conditions that may be an issue or family issues?
I think anybody, it's up to the patient entirely. So if they would like to come and see any of us pre-pregnancy, we'll always find things to talk about, and we'll always find things to give advice about, even if you had no pre-existing conditions and there were no risk factors, there's still plenty to organise before. And I think some, like everybody, like all humans, some people like to plan more than others. Some of my mums are happy to just wing it, and they just show up, I don't know, 3 months into the pregnancy. And, we might have missed a few crucial tests, but I think if you had that sort of feeling of, I'm just happy to wing it, I'll just show up, maybe those tests weren't that important to you in the first place.
The idea of preconception planning and testing was absolutely not anything on my particular radar. I'd worked in the medical field for a while, and sort of I find that so interesting now, being so many years postpartum. I think to myself, did I miss something? Could I have done something better? But I think it's so interesting when people are like listening to these podcasts to know in their brain whether that's something that would be of use to them. Would you say someone was on their second or third pregnancy, is it worth doing that planning prior, or do you sort of think we've done it, you've sort of started with that, or you didn't?
Perhaps if it's your subsequent pregnancy, it's not so much about thinking about the genetic tests, which you may have had prior to the first pregnancy. You don't need to repeat those. But some of my mums will come because we need to unpack the birth or things that happened in the last pregnancy, and maybe think a little bit about how we might do it differently in the next pregnancy. I think for my mums who've seen me and, I've been involved with their care initially with their first pregnancy, I will usually go through that with them at the postnatal visit. I see my mums at 6 to 8 weeks after. But, it's a few years down the track. Sometimes people need reminding, or they just need to kind of. I think when you step away from the birth, when you've had that sort of opportunity of time to process, sometimes there are just different questions.
Yeah.
I think.
For you, I guess, as a part of this preconception, is part of your specialty or anyone in your practice like the fertility element or IVF journey?
So, in my practice with the 5 obstetricians, we don't do some fertility work.
Okay.
We will usually suggest somebody, and I think it's a bit like an obstetrician. They all practice very similarly, IVF doctors, but I think it's important to get the right personality, the right fit. So often if I do see somebody and they then come and say, look, I've had issues falling pregnant, the fertility person I recommend, it's not just one person or one group, it's somebody that I think is going to suit that patient.
A different audition.
Yes, a different audition. Yeah.
In your obviously your practice is broad and you all, work together with lots of different specialties that obviously overlap as well. Yeah. At what stage of pregnancy are you guys normally engaged?
So if we haven't seen somebody that pre-pregnancy, I think when patients call, we'll usually explain to them, look, we'd like to see you for your first visit between 8 to 10 weeks. And I think if there were other risk factors, some of my mums, if they've had previous miscarriages and they're a little bit nervous or perhaps there are some other pre-existing medical conditions, some of them will come a little bit earlier. So I think one of the big things is really getting a scan, an ultrasound at your first appointment. Yeah. So we'd normally say around that 7-week mark, just the tiniest bit before, we'd be able to sort of see the pregnancy on scan and start looking at due dates and things. So certainly we can see some mums earlier.
And so seeing them earlier, that would largely be because of previous issues. But from 7 weeks, someone's come to see you, what is that appointment looking like?
It's an enormous appointment.
Yeah.
So if I haven't met them before, it's a good time to go through all their medical history and find out if there are any things that are going to be important or have an impact on the pregnancy and the baby. We talk a little bit about sort of family history as well, the partner's history. It's kind of interesting to know about how maybe that patient's mother had her babies, that sort of thing. We talk about tests that during the pregnancy, visits, frequency of visits. We do a scan. If there are things like a pap smear, they're not called pap smears anymore, but if there is a cervical smear due, we can do that at that appointment as well. We talk about immunisations in the pregnancy. So there's a lot in that appointment. And I don't expect anybody to remember everything from that appointment. So, we'll often then follow up with either reminders or there's information sessions. One of the things that I talk about with my mums is diet and things maybe that they shouldn't be eating in pregnancy, food safety. But we also offer our mums like a complimentary nutrition session with our dietitian. There's a group session. So then she will reinforce some of the things we've talked about.
I can understand what you're saying with there's not like you assuming that they're not going to remember a lot. Like remembering myself and certainly with lots of mums that I've spoken to, that first appointment and just the anticipation of what's going to be on the scan, what's that going to look like and feel like. I guess from that point, in that first appointment, are you able to define whether the risk is high, low, in between, what that looks like for your patient?
Yeah, I think certainly if there were things that stood out, pre-existing medical conditions, twins, that sort of thing. We can find out twins on the scan at that appointment. Then yes, we're definitely able to already start planning additional things, visits and tests. But I think for many of us, well, certainly for me personally, I don't think of pregnancies as high risk or low risk because I don't think there's one set of interventions or investigations that apply to women who are high risk and then don't apply to women who are low risk. And I think in pregnancy especially, low risk can turn into high risk in a blink of an eye. So I think for me, I'm looking at really what does that particular mum need, and how do I then tailor all the visits and the tests to fit that, to address those needs.
So there's obviously some sort of scope of mould around what the general plan looks like, but when you're looking at that mum, her needs are different depending on who she is. Like there might be mums who literally are in that wing it era, and you're like, I'll see you in 4 weeks.
Yes.
This is fabulous.
We don't need to do anything else. That's right. Yeah.
What sort of things determine where I won't call it high and low risk, but you would need to see someone sooner rather than somebody else?
Yeah. So if we're seeing somebody early, and that's often because of a pregnancy loss in the past, sometimes we will see them more frequently than 4 weekly. So initially, if there's no background problems, we would see mums sort of 4 weekly until about 28 weeks. But I think from a medical point of view, they don't necessarily need to be seen more frequently than 4 weekly.
Yeah.
But if I have a mum that's very nervous, sometimes we just do what they need. And that might be additional scans every 2 weeks. I have had mums who've come in every week for a scan. That is fine. We'll get them through that sort of first trimester. Occasionally we'll need to do some additional tests, and that would be then first trimester much more frequently as well. So if you've had, I don't know, diabetes in the past, or you've had a gestational diabetes, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So just additional monitoring to start with, but it really does sound like you just curb that around each individual patient.
I think everybody needs something different.
Yeah.
Well, I think we just individualise everything as we go.
A lot of this sounds like it's really based around obviously the individual needs, but it sounds like it's a part of your rapport building for the big event.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to build trust. And I think for us, the start of the pregnancy is kind of exciting, and it's scary for most mums. But for obstetricians, that building trust is so that if something does happen later in the pregnancy, then hopefully that those parents are going to trust me if I say, look, I'm worried about this, or I recommend this. And trust doesn't come automatically, and it's not quick. And that's fine. And if parents need to see somebody else, if they need a second opinion, that's okay, because I think that's just being informed and being educated.
Yeah, it's assumably that has evolved over your career as well, and how much more people are sort of taking control of their own care.
Yeah. People have already done their TikTok research by the time they come to see me.
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT, that's the new thing. That's right. TikTok is old hat now.
It's moved on from that. Why would someone choose to engage an obstetrician as opposed to a private midwife or going through the public system?
I guess the big difference between private obstetrics and public, I guess for me, is just continuity of care or consistency of care. So seeing the same obstetrician, and even in a group setting, seeing the same group of doctors who share really the same philosophy about birth. You don't have to go through your story every time, because in public you're probably seeing a different midwife every time. Look, I really think in public it's an excellent system. It's just perhaps under-resourced, I think. And just from the sheer magnitude of numbers, you will end up seeing a different person each time, and possibly less visits as well. The difference, I guess, between seeing a private midwife and a private obstetrician, perhaps it's just a little bit more medical background and talking through options, I think. And this is divisive, but if some mums will come with already an idea that perhaps they would like to discuss a planned caesarean, say, for example, that's not really available. There's not an opportunity for that with a private midwife. And that's not something necessarily that, obstetricians are encouraging. I want to just preface this by saying we just want what mums want. But I think there's maybe a little bit less opportunity to explore maybe medical things with a private midwife.
Yeah, cool. So if that was something front of mind, then obviously choice is choice.
Yes.
But if a mum engages a private obstetrician, will they definitely be there for the birth?
It depends a little bit.
In your practice, what does that look like?
Yeah. So when I say it depends, it's because there is no obstetrician that works 365 days a year anymore. It's not safe for mums or families.
That is something that really is not that, like, it changed not that recently, didn't it?
Yeah. And that's quite... I think a lot of our safety information in obstetrics actually comes from the aviation industry.
Okay.
And if you...
Interesting comparison, isn't it?
Well, if you think that it would, it's not safe for your pilot to have been flying for 24 hours straight, why would it be safe for your obstetrician to be working 24 hours straight?
Yeah.
And I think when we say it like that, all of a sudden I see my parents go, oh, yeah, right.
I probably want you to show up at your best, Jean.
Yes. Yeah. So I think there's a few different models in private obstetrics. There are solo obstetricians who have a covering arrangement with other obstetricians.
Yeah.
And then there are group practices like ours where there are 5 of us, but we all work in the same office.
Yeah.
And the difference, I guess, when we cover each other is that because we're in the same vicinity, when you make an appointment with us or when you book with us, the secretaries make the appointments all the way to the end, and they slot in one appointment with each of the other obstetricians.
Yeah.
So you will actually have the opportunity to meet all the other obstetricians. So there won't be a stranger at the birth. If it's not me, and we deliver actually the vast majority of our own patients, but if it's not me, then it will be one of my colleagues that you ideally will have already met.
Yeah.
The solo obstetricians, you won't have the opportunity to meet the other obstetricians because they're often in an office, I guess, elsewhere. They don't have one secretary or one pool of secretaries that's coordinating all the appointments.
Yeah. So group practice very much differs in that way.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest change, the difference.
And from aviation, who would have thought?
It's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah. So throughout the journey of pregnancy, we've covered a bit of preconception, then sort of a broad sort of look at what that might look like through pregnancy. So appointments, generally 4 weeks, depending on the person, up until 28 weeks, then 2
fortnightly, till 36 weeks and then weekly after that.
And the actual appointments, are there milestone things that you're looking for throughout those appointments that are key things for you?
I think the big, and certainly for the parents, the big ones are the ultrasounds. So there's a 13-week ultrasound, then there's one at 21 weeks. We look at sort of the anatomy, the developing anatomy of the baby. There is often a growth scan. I would recommend a growth scan looking at not just the size of the baby, but, how's the placenta working, that kind of thing. We tend to do that sort of middle of third trimester, around 34 weeks sort of thing. Yeah. There are some additional scans if we pick up other issues in the pregnancy. So those are sort of the big milestones for many parents. Then, if we think a little bit about other tests, diabetes test, everybody knows the diabetes test. So that happens end of second trimester, 26 to 28 weeks. Yeah. I think actually even before that, we sort of think, I think for parents, milestones are maybe even the Down syndrome screening test.
Yeah.
So I think maybe some parents are using that and the ultrasound, the 13-week ultrasound, to decide when they start announcing the pregnancy, I guess.
Yeah. Despite the fact that there's been quite a journey beforehand, obviously it's been quite controversial over time as to what happens there. But so these milestone things that you're looking for just a progression of pregnancy.
Yes, or picking up other maybe things that haven't quite gone according to plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then from birth, obviously it may be you or one of the others who are in attendance for practice.
Yep.
What does it look like after birth for you? So postpartum kicks in. Mum has birthed.
So our mums, if they're birthing in a private hospital, we're looking at sort of 5 days stay in the hospital. It's a really good time to kind of learn everything you can about breastfeeding if you're planning to breastfeed, but learning how to look after your baby. Midwives will teach you how to bathe the baby. If it's your first baby, you probably have no idea how to bathe a baby. They're very slippery. But also thinking a little bit about the hormone changes and just supporting parents through that, sleep deprivation, the drop in the hormones, the baby blues. So after parents go home at the 5-day mark, or if there are other things that have occurred in the birth, sometimes that will be a little bit longer, or if the baby has become jaundiced, it's a little bit longer. So typically I would see my parents at the 6 to 8 week mark after. But there's a whole lot of things that happen between discharge from the hospital and coming back to see me.
Even in that hospital stay, I guess I'm quite interested to know what does that look like? Obviously you're staying in touch with what's going on for your families whilst they're in hospital care still, but they're still under your immediate care. So what is your role as an obstetrician for them whilst they're in hospital still?
So we're looking for very early signs of perhaps problems from the birth or early postnatal problems. So things like checking the bleeding is okay, checking that they don't have an infection either in the womb or in the breast with mastitis if they're breastfeeding. But also I think looking at kind of their mood and their mental health, I think, because it's quite common and it's very normal to feel, a whole range of emotions. Elation, you feel superhuman initially, but then the next day you haven't slept at night and then you feel like you can't do anything and there's tears. So I think really looking at what's kind of expected and normal, and then what is perhaps more than that and something that is going to be of concern that requires closer monitoring after discharge from the hospital.
And then so anything that does or may come up in that time, so I guess are we saying that during that stay in hospital that is quite common for, like, it's obviously a monitoring period, but what is normal? What's like, is it normal to be bleeding quite a lot after birth? Does it slow down? Like what is normal?
I frequently have to remind my mums, it's probably going to be more than a period, so don't be alarmed. I mean, that's the reason why those maternity pads are so enormous, I think, because they are really very large maternity pads. And I usually say to my mums, don't just bring one bag of maternity pads, you'll need more. So the first maybe 2 to 3 days, it's quite a bit of bleeding. Now, obviously, if the bleeding is so torrential and it's just coming away from you, that's not normal. But I think that's the benefit of being in hospital. The midwives will check the pads and they'll say to you, oh, no, that's okay. Or they'll say, no, that's much more than we would expect. And that's when I'd be getting a call. But looking at sort of what happens after the first couple of days, it should already start to decrease volume of blood flow before you discharge from the hospital. I'll usually warn my mums the first couple of days when you get home, there's another little increase in the blood flow. That's probably because they're all going home to do the washing or rushing around, or I don't know what they're all doing when they go home.
Assimilating back into life.
Or looking after their toddlers or something. But the blood loss will increase a bit and then it will slowly come down again. But you're in hospital for that, and we're checking your temperatures, checking your blood pressures. Some women who have normal blood pressures throughout pregnancy and birth, they will spike blood pressures afterwards. That's still important for us.
I know that we're going to dig a little bit more into this in the next episode, which will be important for us to chat on too. I guess from that postpartum perspective, so somebody goes home now, they don't see you again for 6 to 8 weeks. When like they go home, are you just play on? Like, let's see how you go, call me if you need?
Yeah,
or?
call me if you need.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in our office specifically, I can't really speak for other practices, but the midwife often calls, well, she'll usually call our first-time mums a couple of weeks down the track sort of thing, just to check in on them. And I think most of our families know, because we've looked after them for the whole pregnancy. Oh, look, if I'm worried about something, I'm going to give Jean a call, or I'm going to call the practice and speak to the midwives, that sort of thing. And we'll tell them that before they leave the hospital. Look, if we're not the right people, that's still okay. Call us, because we can help direct you.
Yeah, equally you've got the link already, so that feels comfortable.
But I think there will be occasionally some families that don't want to be a bother and they don't want to call. So it's kind of nice to get the midwife to check in on them a couple of weeks down the track, see how they're settling in, see if there's any issues, anything they want to discuss. I think if we've initiated the phone call, I think maybe mums are feeling more comfortable at that point to then say, I am worried about this, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah. Again, that rapport really helps then too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In the group practice that you're in, how does your work as an obstetrician tie into other healthcare professionals? You've already sort of started to talk about, potentially linking them onwards, but what does that look like for you?
Well, so I think for us, we really wanted to build a practice or an environment where we were looking after families. It wasn't just about delivering the baby safely and having mum healthy at the end, but it was also looking at supporting them during the pregnancy and postnatally. So we have a lactation consultant. So I think that's really helpful for mums. The breastfeeding issues change, and you might have one issue when you're in the hospital, but then you get home and you think you've got it sorted, and then something else changes. So I think it's nice to have a lactation consultant. There are now, I think, 5 physiotherapists that work at the practice. They're pelvic floor physios. So I think that's really useful during the pregnancy in terms of getting the body ready for birth, but also postnatally then looking at recovery, getting your core strength back, looking at returning to exercise and intimacy. So I think really having access to all those different modalities, I think, is useful for parents and families. We have also at our practice 5 gynecologists, and there's a urogynecologist about to start with us soon. And I hope, for everybody's sake, that nobody needs to see a urogynecologist. They deal with incontinence and prolapse. But I think the reality is some women will need that. And
to have them linked in and already knowing is it's the safe space that you've built.
Definitely.
We've learnt a lot in this session. Thank you very much, Jean. We're going to join you again for the next episode.
Thank you.
This podcast represents the opinions of our hosts and their guest speakers. Views and opinions expressed in the podcast are our own and do not represent that of our places of work. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and content here should not be taken as medical or professional advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any personal recommendations and medical care. While we make every effort to ensure that the information we are sharing is accurate, based on the best available information at the time of recording, we will welcome any comments, suggestions or feedback via our website, contact form, home.com.au/contact. Names and details of personal experiences may have been changed to allow anonymity and privacy. To join the conversation, join us on social media at Home Postpartum.